Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a really fascinating, kind of absurd, but highly educational case study. Imagine, if you will, a poor monkey. Now, this monkey just cannot afford bananas. He's completely out of options, so he comes up with a terrible idea. He decides to rob a bank. Boom! He pulls off the heist, and suddenly he's sitting on an absolute mountain of leaves, which, in our monkey economy, is cold, hard cash. But now he faces a massive problem. How does he actually use this stolen wealth?
And that right there brings us to our core question. Why can't our monkey just, walk down to his local bank and deposit this huge pile of stolen leaves? Well, because it's incredibly suspicious. If he suddenly shows up with millions of leaves, the bank tellers are definitely going to start asking questions. And even worse, monkey banks are actually required to report all this unusual activity directly to the monkey IRS. If they ask him where he got the leaves, he can't exactly just say, "Oh, I stole them from your vault."
Okay, let's dive into this. To solve his problem, the monkey needs to make his illegal leaves look entirely legitimate. So what does he do? He goes out and buys a perfectly legal banana business. He then takes his stolen leaves and just quietly mixes them in with the legitimate profits of that banana stand. Suddenly, to the outside world, he didn't rob a bank at all. He's just an incredibly successful banana entrepreneur. In essence, money laundering is really just the act of deleting your money's search history so nobody can see where it originally came from.
Section 1. 3 steps to clean leaves, also known as the laundering process.
So here's the standard playbook. Step 1 is placement. This is where the monkey takes his illegally obtained leaves and injects them into the monkey economy. He's trying to distance the physical leaves from the actual scene of the crime. Step 2 is layering, and this is where things get really complex. He moves the leaves around wildly, transferring them between multiple bank accounts, buying monkey property, maybe some monkey artwork. The whole goal of layering is to make the paper trail practically impossible to follow. And finally, step 3 is integration. The leaves have been washed through all these businesses and assets, and they return to the monkey as legitimate, squeaky clean income.
And this brilliantly illustrates exactly what not to do. I just need to take a quick second here to step out of the jungle and remind everyone. This is strictly an explainer for educational purposes. This is absolutely not financial advice, and please do not try to launder your money. Aside from it being highly illegal, as we'll see, the authorities are actually incredibly good at catching it.
Section 2. Popular laundering methods. Let's look at the techniques.
One of the most famous techniques out there is called smurfing. Now, if you're a gamer, you might think smurfing means creating a low-ranked account to absolutely dominate beginners in a multiplayer game, but in the financial underworld, smurfing is something else entirely. It's the practice of breaking down a massive pile of illegal leaves into lots of tiny, inconspicuous deposits. Think about it. If our monkey drops 100,000 leaves at the bank all at once, red flags go up everywhere. But if he deposits one leaf 100,000 times, it flies right under the radar.
Then we have the use of corporate structures. Think about a real banana business for a second. It's got inventory, it has employees, and a physical storefront. Now compare that to a shell company. A shell company exists entirely on paper. There's no physical address, no real operations, and 0 employees. Now, while owning a shell company is perfectly legal, criminals use them to create incredibly convoluted webs of ownership. When investigators try to find out who actually owns a bank account, they discover that Banana Holdings owns Monkey Corp, which owns Jungle Investments, and it becomes this massive headache just to find the actual monkey pulling the strings.
Criminals utilize a whole menu of other methods too. You've got cash-heavy businesses, like laundromats, which make it incredibly hard to verify exactly how many leaves were actually spent in a day. Then there's trade-based laundering, which basically involves lying on invoices, saying you sold thousands of bananas when, in reality, you only sold 4. Casinos are constantly used to move massive amounts of leaves quickly. Luxury assets are super popular as well. A criminal might buy a literal banana taped to a wall for 6.2 million leaves just to store their wealth. And while a lot of criminals think cryptocurrency is this untraceable dark web paradise, the reality is that the blockchain is a public ledger, making crypto highly traceable. Finally, they use money mules. These are other monkeys, sometimes tricked by scams, whose bank accounts are used to move the dirty leaves around.
Section 3. How the IRS detects it.
Let's see how the authorities catch all this. Let's move to Pooh and see how this builds. The IRS relies on strict automated reporting tools to essentially cast an invisible net over the entire banking system. The first tool is a CTR, or Currency Transaction Report. If a monkey deposits 10,000 or more leaves all at once, the bank automatically flags it for the IRS. To counter that smurfing technique we talked about, banks use SARs, which stands for Suspicious Activity Reports. If a monkey makes a bunch of deposits just under that 10,000 leaf limit to avoid a CTR, a SAR is filed anyway. And if a business receives more than 10,000 leaves in a single transaction, they have to file a Form 8300. The whole system is literally designed to trigger alerts the second large amounts of cash start moving.
But beyond just automated bank reports, the authorities also use lifestyle audits and data analytics. Computers are constantly crunching tax records and corporate filings in the background. So, if the data shows that a monkey is living in a jungle mansion and driving a luxury banana car, but his tax return says he only made 50 leaves last year working at a laundromat, well, the math just doesn't add up. That lifestyle discrepancy automatically triggers an audit, and the entire house of cards collapses.
Section 4. Taxing illegal income.
Believe it or not, the IRS absolutely expects you to pay taxes on your stolen leaves. It really doesn't matter if you earned your wealth legitimately or by robbing a bank, the tax man always wants his cut. But of course, there's a bit of a catch here. The IRS doesn't actually require our monkey to literally write bank robbery on his annual tax return. Instead, illegal leaves are simply supposed to be reported under the incredibly vague category of other income.
So, the crucial point is, the reason the law is structured this way comes down to the Fifth Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which protects citizens against self-incrimination. The government literally cannot force you to confess to a crime on a tax form. However, lying about your income or trying to hide it altogether, that is tax evasion, and that will land you in serious trouble.
To really understand how powerful this is, we have to look back at history, specifically at the famous gangster Abe Capone. Back in the 1920s, Capone ran a massive criminal enterprise involving bootlegging and extortion. He famously bought actual laundromats to mix his illegal cash with legitimate coin-operated profits, which, by the way, is exactly where the term money laundering comes from. But here's the crazy part. Despite all his violent crimes, the police couldn't pin the underlying offenses on him. In 1931, it was the tax agents who finally brought him down. He was convicted of tax evasion simply for failing to report his income as a monkey crime boss.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer staggering scale of this activity today. Current estimates actually suggest that money laundering accounts for roughly 2 to 5% of the global monkey GDP every single year. We are talking about truly massive amounts of wealth constantly flowing through these placement, layering, and integration cycles right beneath our noses.
And here is the ultimate irony of our monkey's situation. Criminals prioritize making their leaves appear legitimate over simply burying them in the dirt, all because they want to spend their wealth in the real economy. But that very process, the effort required to launder the money, is exactly what creates a paper trail. Investigators often point out that money laundering is the first step to discovering the underlying crime. Where there's smoke, there's fire, right? The very mechanism designed to hide the crime is usually the exact thing that exposes the entire enterprise.
It really makes you look at the world a little differently, doesn't it? From cash-heavy businesses to super complex corporate structures, the mechanisms of laundering are deeply embedded in the global financial system. It leaves you wondering, the next time you walk past an empty store that somehow manages to stay in business year after year, what hidden economy of leaves and bananas is operating right around you? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep your curiosity sharp.